So we'll call to order the regular city council meeting of June 27th, 2022. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Here.
Salvia, Albrecht,
Here.
Gould,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Harrison, and Sage.
Here. Thank you. Would you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome, everybody, on this beautiful evening. I think this meeting shouldn't go too long tonight. But thank you for coming, and we will move right on. So first, we have public comment scheduled and non-scheduled. Brian, do we have anybody here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. We have one that's not on the books that we're going to present a Good Neighbor Award tonight. So I'd just like to read this plaque, and they can come up, and then if Rachel wants to say something from the City Beautiful, she certainly can. So the Rochester City Beautiful Commission presents Jeff and Jennifer Kusemba. Is that? With the Good Neighbor Award for making a difference in the Rochester community 2022 from the City Beautiful and also from our City Council. So congratulations. Let's have a hand for being a good neighbor. Why don't you come on up?
Rachel, say a few words.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Rachel.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the council. So we have our nominator and our nominees here. Marilyn Trent nominated Jeffrey and Jennifer Kusemba for the Good Neighbor Award because, and we have 7 bullet points here, they help whenever there is a need. When their lawnmower service couldn't come, Jeff mowed their lawn. When they needed volunteers for the Rochester Pollinators during the pandemic, Jennifer and both of their children, Katie and Olivia, came to the farmers market and helped sell and give away plants. Katie and Olivia painted rocks with pollinators on them, and they were painted in bright colors because the papers were blowing all around on the table at the farmers market, so they came in handy. They care about the environment and planted milkweed plants and other native plants to save the monarch butterfly. They are always friendly to all of the neighbors and are always willing to help and have a kind word whenever you see them. They are the best neighbors we have ever had.
Wow. Handshake and a handoff.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Especially like the one that'll come over and cut your grass. I like that. I'll remember that. There you go. Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes, is consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 13th, 2022.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Support with comment.
support by Councilmember Sage. Discussion, Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we were at this meeting, we passed a consent agenda for the Crossroads of America, contingent upon them submitting a special event application. Just wanted to make sure that that was submitted and is approved.
They did, and it is.
Thank you.
They did, and it is.
There we go.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the consent agenda. is to approve the purchase of 13 Brother Rugged jet printers for use in patrol vehicles and motorcycles for a total price of $11,579.23. Mr. City Manager, do you want to?
Chief, do you want to talk about it? On here. I believe the chief.
You don't have to,
You don't
Chief.
have to on the consent, but yeah, I believe we're obviously in support of this. We have it budgeted. It's just the normal close out of these computers. They're quite old. And they use them on all the vehicles that we have, including the motorcycles. So we're in support.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Albrecht.
A motion to approve the consent agenda to include the appointment of election workers for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. Then I had a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't read that. So it was the appointment of election workers for August 2nd, 2022 primary election. So motion by Councilmember Albrecht.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Peterson. Discussion, Councilmember Albrecht.
Again, I know I'm a broken record, and the scorecard does not apply well to fire, police, and DPW. Again, Chief, we know that this is something we need for the safety and protection of all our residents, and yet we can only get a measly 8 points on the scorecard. So I think we've had this in the queue to, at some point, pull those groups out of the scorecard or create something that will allow us to look at them rationally. But again, I fully support this, and so.
Very good.
That was my comment as well. I had that written down because I know that we're working on it, and I believe we were told it would be in the next budget cycle that the finance department was working on that to separate fire and police. And then I just had one question for the clerk. Regarding the election workers, do they apply every year? You reach out to them?
Applications are on file. It's usually the same core group with very few substitutions, so.
Okay, not a problem.
Very good. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. There's no old business or table items tonight, no public hearings, legislative deliberation. First is consideration of an ordinance amendment to Chapter 32 offensives, first reading and adoption. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. City Attorney.
All yours, Jeff.
I heard what I thought I was going to hear. Before you tonight are proposed ordinance amendments to Chapter 32, which is the section in the code for ordinance offenses. Periodically, the fire department, or excuse me, the police department and I will have discussions of situations they run into that may or may not fit exactly, or what do we think about this, what do we think about this? And so, they tend to be, when we get to a point where we feel it's appropriate to add or to clarify things, then we kind of try to bring some in a group together, since we're all in the same chapter. This one has 3 separate and unrelated things together, but all in Chapter 32. The first proposed ordinance would be brand new, which would be Chapter 32, but Section 32-40, and we call it the criminal conduct causing a police response. There's another community in the area that has one. I've talked to their prosecutor a number of times, because there's a lot of times when you write a ticket, or the officers write a ticket for a misdemeanor, it's because that's what it's considered in the code book. And sometimes there's mitigating factors that would say, you know what, the person's youthful, there was no injury, there's no damage, but it caused a disruption of some sort. So on occasion, it would be nice to have an ordinance that the officer wouldn't write this one. They would write what the other code violation would be. But in the process of going to court, sometimes we hear the rest of the story, if you will, or the officers say, listen, this person, they were cooperative, they were this, and can we give them something besides a criminal offense that they then have to deal with? And so what this does is, it's really anything in the code we can reduce it, and when it comes to court, kind of a plea bargain. Think, if it's a speeding ticket, 10 over, and we drop down to 5 over, plea bargain. This one would be able to drop it from a misdemeanor to a civil infraction. So the person would still have to come to court. They generally have attorneys, but not always. So there's that street justice where they've taken the time, they've realized the issue. We wouldn't clearly do this for all of them, but, we think of it as another arrow in the quiver of the police department. So that would be that one. So it just allows it to be a civil infraction instead of a misdemeanor. The second one would be, proposed change would be to the disorderly conduct ordinance, which is chapter 32-246. Disorderly conduct can be as vague as it sounds. What does that mean? And so in the ordinance, it does list a number of things, a disturbance, a fight or quarrel in a public place. Well, sometimes situations arise where, it could fall into that. It could fall into sometimes the loitering ordinance and this, but we decided that based on a recent issue, it's like, it's time to amend this one to expand it a bit, to make it more clear. Because sometimes people read these and like, well, what do you have, fight or a quarrel? I mean, that was just a noise thing. So what we did is we added language in there, which is to act in a manner that warrants the police involvement. And the recent example of this one was there was a call to the police department that someone was trying to pop doors in the parking structures and trying to gain access to it. They actually didn't get into them, but it caused enough of a concern because like any of us would be like, whoa, that's not right. And so they called. And so when we look at the disorderly conduct, is it a disturbance, a fight, or a quarrel? Probably not. But so it kind of expanded the language for that type of incident. So, we ended up writing that one a loitering because that was the best fit. So we wanted to expand this a little bit. And finally, the third one is a proposed new ordinance, section 32-314. There was an incident, not an incident, but an observation that someone was shooting a bow in their yard, which caused a call to the police department to say, can this happen, can it not happen? So through looking at the ordinance book, there's things that you can't shoot a firearm within the city. You can't do, similar, projectiles. But this one, there was really nothing that addressed bow and arrow, and while certainly it can be, people can do a bow and arrow safely, with the size lots that there are in the city, there's a possibility that arrows can leave the property, and so this one is one of those that we wanted to bring before a city council for consideration. Do you want to allow, or I guess in this case, prohibit someone from shooting a bow and arrow or a crossbow within the city outside of an enclosed building? Obviously, no one would, if you're doing it in your garage and it's no chance of an arrow going outside, that would be okay. So we put that, that's why we put enclosed situations. So that's up for discussion as well tonight as for consideration. So if city council wants to move forward with one, two, or all three of these, the next step would be to move it for first reading and introduction to come back at the next meeting for adoption. So I'm certainly here, and the police chief, we've talked about this for a bit, and so we can answer any questions that you may have.
Can you do the call of bow and arrow, disorderly conduct?
You could.
Okay. Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you. Would that be if it was intentional?
Well, that's where the vagueness of the disorderly comes into play.
Right. So I do have a couple. The first one I'm okay with, but do you feel that might end up being abused at all?
The one that would be used, it would be me.
You would, okay, so
I mean,
this
the
is
decision maker.
abused.
She said.
Abused.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the officers can't write this. We have it set up as a secondary offense, so a situation, so we actually put it in here that you can't, it is specifically would say it's not one that can be charged initially at the scene.
Right.
So then it's more of a, let's talk about it, because they issue the tickets and handle the situation at the scene, but sometimes, after further discussion or, parents get involved and they talked about things or, whatever the situation is, that could, then it's a discussion for later. But the one who makes the ultimate decision whether to amend it to that would be me.
Okay, so next question, this would have nothing to do with drug and alcohol, correct?
I could see, the only way I could see that would be if it was a disorderly intoxication charge, which means essentially they were disorderly and had been consuming alcohol.
Okay.
But for MIPs, which, shocker, happens often, for MIPs, those, were recently, I say recently in the last 6 years, the first offense is now a civil infraction by state law. So we don't hardly get any of those anymore because people pay those now. So really, you can't, we wouldn't use this for like drunk driving and then obviously marijuana, we don't see hardly any marijuana offenses anymore. So this is a tool that probably wouldn't be used often.
Okay.
But it is one that we feel is a good add for those situations where we just can't, a misdemeanor, and knowing that, this particular person could be put on probation for, 12 or 18 months when it's really a no victim type situation is,
Okay, well, I appreciate that. That one I'm okay with moving forward. The next one, question, public places. Is that only, that doesn't include the internet, it doesn't include any of that, so?
Nope.
As far as public places, so, because that is public today too, so.
that is a space for sure.
Yeah, okay.
But no, this is definitely meant to be out in, physical locations, whether it's the streets, sidewalks, parking lots.
Okay. Just so it doesn't get confused.
Yep, good question.
Yep, the last one, I am not in favor of the bows. I am in favor of changing it for the crossbows because those are like shooting a gun, okay? A regular bow is different. If people are target practicing or whatever, I don't see that as being as harmful as using a crossbow. And I think that one phone call regarding that doesn't justify including both. Especially because some properties in town have larger lots, et cetera. But then I would ask the chief to tell me.
He has his hand in his gun.
No, that's okay, yeah. Can't
Chief,
discharge
welcome.
inside.
Thank you. I guess just in a way to be consistent.
Yep.
We already have an ordinance on the books that deals with rifles, air pistols, or any pneumatic device. So if you're thinking about BB guns and those of those natures. So we're already looking at, if you're talking about hazard or danger, we're already regulating weapons that are probably less dangerous than a bow and arrow. If you look at bows and arrows, we get calls probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 times a year about my neighbors, shooting a bow and arrow in their backyard. We also get questions from people that are, I guess, in a way thinking, is that legal or illegal? And because it's on their mind, and we get questions about it. So these are not one-off situations where we got one call and somebody said, hey, we need to, ban that or curtail it. And with regard to, if I hunt, not everyone hunts with a crossbow. They hunt with other types of bows, compound bows, bows that are certainly able to cover rather large distances for hunting, and would certainly be wanting to target practice with those. And when you think of, particularly on the west side of the city, you're in some pretty close quarters, and so I think that's, we looked at that from an overall safety standpoint. I think this seems to make sense to provide that level of safety throughout the city.
Okay.
Councilmember Gould?
Yeah, thanks. These look like great ideas. I'm wondering if on number 3, it wouldn't behoove us to not list specific items like a bow and a crossbow. I went axe throwing not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I don't really want my next door neighbor, I do live on the west side, launching axes across the yard either, or, I don't know, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, blowguns and whatnot, and those potato guns can go half a mile. I guess those are air compressed, but would it be easier if we just said not allowed to, anything could be projected to the air that could cause harm or something? I don't know. Seems like it would be a little bigger room.
Yeah, I guess, you always want to look at, how much wiggle room do we want? And this kind of, I guess, dials into the specific things that we know we get calls on and we know are particularly hazardous. We have other ordinances that deal with projectiles, so if I'm throwing a snowball at somebody at a moving car or whatever, there's other ordinances that deal with that type of activity already, so. I think this is kind of the missing link of those. If you look at BB guns, what's the next one would be those guns.
Thank you.
Attorney Crott?
Yeah, I think we could also put in or similar, bladed, or, I mean, we could put in there similar type projectiles, like that. So we can wordsmith that to knives. I mean, yeah, I mean, axe throwing, I never thought about the axe throwing, but that is definitely a thing these days. It's fun. Yeah. So, yeah, we can certainly provide some expanded language for the next go-around.
Councilmember Peters?
Yes, thank you. What about shooting fireworks, though?
Well, fireworks is obviously, there's laws that are crafted as to when that can happen. It's already codified as to, what regulations need to be followed to do them, when you can do them, at hours you can do them. So, while difficult to enforce, obviously, there are laws on the books to deal with that already.
Okay, because they do cause harm, and you cannot determine whether they're going to be projected, so.
Yeah, well, if you recall, they used to be regulated, and our state has taken efforts by state law to further regulate them.
In our code is, we modeled it after, mirrors the state law. We actually had to back it off because ours was more restrictive. And then the state said you have to allow for these dates. You can only prohibit it during, not around these particular holidays. It was very detailed on, so we made it as restrictive as we could under state law, so.
And I recall when we did that, it's just
I do.
that because we're talking about things that are projected.
Yep.
Councilmember Albrecht?
I was going to bring this up in miscellaneous, but Councilmember Peterson's question and the chief's response, can you give us the hours for when fireworks can be distributed? And then, Nick, can we put that on the website to make sure it's front and center? Because I saw Channel 7 News before I came here, and they had some hours. I don't know if that was what applies to us.
So 11 a.m. to 11:45 p.m., and it starts on the 29th and ends on the 4th.
Thank you, Chief.
The 5th would be the first day when they'll be present again.
Thank you.
We'll do that.
That's a good idea.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to make them, well, we're going to do each one of these separate, because that's how it'll go in for first reading and adoption then.
Well, this is one ordinance, but if you didn't want a particular one in there, I mean, they're all separate sections,
Of the same ordinance?
so they can be separated if you want them to be, sure. But I mean, if you want to pull something out, then that would be a good discussion at this point, but otherwise, you're just duplicating your.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just thought maybe for the purposes of the first reading and adoption going out to the public. So I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance amendment to Chapter 32 regarding offenses, to add a new section 32-40, and also to, the second proposed change would be regarding disorderly conduct ordinance, and that's section 32-246. Just those two.
Okay, so there's a motion by Councilmember Peterson on just the first two. Is there support for that? Okay, there is not support for that. Is there a further motion?
Do we-
Councilmember Albrecht,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there was not a second.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
So, okay, I just thought that those were two things that we wanted. Okay.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Then I'll make the motion for the approval as presented on section 32-40, the second proposed change for section 32-246 about disorderly conduct, and then adding in the third section as proposed with some language changes by City Attorney Crott to expand the discharge of bows and crossbows to include other thrown objects like knives, blades, and things of that sort for first reading.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilmember Gould for the three things in the ordinance. Discussion. Councilmember Peterson.
Well, I made the motion for the two that I thought should be go through, so I don't know why we couldn't have just approved those two and then, instead of grouping them all together. So now I'm going to have to vote for to say no to all three. So, not that I want to, but I wanted the first two and I wanted consideration for the third one. So I think they should have been separated due to the type of ordinance amendments that they are.
Very good. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson,
Nope.
Sage.
Yes.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, while the chief's up there, Councilman Sage asked earlier if the Crossroads application was in. I saw it come in, and Chief said he did not follow up on it yet. The gentleman didn't.
Oh, the special
So we're gonna, so I want to retract my statement. I saw it come in, I thought he finished up, so we still have time to do it.
Okay.
But it's on him. He still didn't get us all the information. I did not know that. I apologize, so.
Was there anything I can do to assist? I thought I saw the certificate of insurance and.
So did I. So somehow he didn't,
I don't have an application.
we told him to send it to the chief, so he did not do that yet, officially.
I have a copy here I can give you.
Oh,
That'd be great. We'll make that happen.
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Wellhead Protection Plan Grant Update. Alec, welcome.
City staff wish to apply for a wellhead protection program grant through the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Part of that grant application is an approved resolution by City Council. And this application is due by the end of June. I'm hoping we'll have that resolution approved tonight so I can submit that tomorrow. City's applied for this grant for the past few years to help fund elements of our protection program. These activities have included the creation of a written program, which is soon to be completed, educational materials, physical signs marking areas surrounding our wellheads, and quarterly meetings with stakeholders. This program is a requirement through EAGLE. And for this new grant for fiscal year ending '23, city staff wish to create a more robust water consumer confidence report to better educate residents not only on the quality of their water, but also on other water and general environmental issues. So right after the resolution, I included what our current water confidence report looks like, pretty similar to what most communities have for their report. You know, it's pretty standard language, some tables showing quality of the water, but we'd like to make it more kind of like a booklet, a little more visually appealing, with a lot more information, and just, really give residents the information on how their water infrastructure works and where their money's going towards. This is matching grants, and we've got budgeted $20,000 for this, but I'm not thinking it's going to be that much, probably $10,000 with a match of $5,000. But the resolution says up to $20,000.
Very good. Council? Questions, comments?
No, I'll make a motion to approve, and I do have one question. How soon do we find out about this for next year? When do they actually announce that they have that? I know you might not know that yet. To have this available to where we're not doing it at the last minute, I mean, I understand.
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah.
next year I can apply a lot sooner. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's
With the
okay.
crossover with our former, it got, lucky DLZ followed up for us, Laura.
Oh, okay.
Stayed on it, made sure, she thought we might miss the cycle, but Alec was like, if we do this now, we can make it by a day, so.
I remember last year's too,
was
so
earlier.
same thing.
Well,
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Peterson,
And
support by Councilmember Sage. Comment?
one last thing, actually, speaking of next year, we're actually thinking of maybe having this beta last year. So we've been doing it for a few years now, and we've already kind of created a lot of good educational materials, and not really sure what else we could do with it. So this might beta last year, we plan on doing it, but we'll reevaluate here in another 8 months and see if there's more we can do with this.
Sounds good. Councilmember Albrecht.
Nick, you may remember this, a few years ago, there was something that went out on the water bills that caused a lot of consternation
Yes.
by a vendor. This made me think of that, so I just want to
Yeah.
make sure whatever materials we put together are approved by, come before us,
Yeah.
so we don't get this groundswell, pardon the pun, of feedback saying, why was this in my water bill? What is this all about? So I don't know, I know that was maybe
Yeah.
3 or 4 years ago.
It was, you're right. It was, I think it was our first year of the program, and kind of everybody panicked, like, we have a problem with our water.
Yeah, because the vendor sent it out without us knowing.
Without
it.
us knowing. Oh, yeah, it's during the Flint crisis. Dan's right now.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I do have another question. So our water quality report, though, how are we actually getting that out to the masses of our community?
It's published in the Post, and it also is on the city's website.
Okay.
Yeah, so due
I've
to our
seen it in,
population size, we're not required to mail it out to every resident.
right, no, I've seen it in the newspaper before, but just for the public, so they don't think we're not sending out the
Right
report.
on the front page, I think, of our website.
So I'm still waiting on a price back from one of our printers to see how much it would cost to send out to every resident.
A lot.
Yeah, so it's, right now we're looking at probably just printing out maybe a couple hundred booklets to include. Not sure how yet, but still waiting on those prices.
Okay,
Very good.
thanks.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes,
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on to reports and regular business. First is receipt of the May building report. Mr. City Manager.
Normally, I would say this is kind of mundane paperwork, but if you take a look at these numbers here, there's 2 pages. That's a heck of a month. We did $144,000 in permit fees. A big bulk of that was PAR came in with the big addition. But that was worth $18,025,000 change in construction value. That's significant. But to me, just as significant is the fact that, remember, this is one guy, Randy, is our building official, Randy McClure, and then with our 3 inspectors, he issued 89 permits with Rose, and Rose is new to our staff, and she just jumped in, and her and Randy are a great team. And they put out 89 permits. Randy did 317 inspections, Randy and the 2 inspectors, in 1 month, not a year. So I know, Am, you had, Councilwoman Peterson, when you talked about the electric car, that thing's out there all day with Randy. He seems to, I bet she's out there 4 hours a day doing inspections. He's that busy. So he's embraced that, and we haven't got any complaints from the contractors. We're staying on top of it. So kudos to those 2. That's a big month for us. We had a very good year because it's end of June, obviously, with the fiscal year. So we were all very pleased with the output from the building department. So the details are in your report.
Councilmember Peterson.
yes, thank you. So regarding the electrical permits, those 19, were those broken down into, like, are those new structures? Are they remodels?
Both.
Both? So, and I bring it up because in light of all the electrical issue fires that have happened in the surrounding communities, it's pretty alarming anymore because most of those renovations had to be approved by municipalities. So,
Yeah, and I would just say that a lot of the first calls come to me because just the number you hit, they usually hit my number somehow. And I always explain to them, we're not in this to make money on any inspection, especially electrical or mechanical. We're there to protect you from, if you will, the contractor. So we're here for you to make sure things are done right. So yeah, you pay a little bit of money, but it's to protect the homeowner, the property owner against work that's complicated, right? So, and never get pushback on that because I think it's because they're reading it too and seeing in the paper what's going on, so.
thank you.
And then, Nick, a receipt of the check register report.
Yes, there's 2 in your packet this evening, 616 and 623 for your approval.
Now, I have some questions on that.
Okay.
Let's see. I can actually give them to you offline as well.
Okay.
But a few of them, now on 623, the AEW, are these all separate projects? I know our check register does not print things the way to really tell, like, what they go to.
Right.
And then also, there were 3 Civic Plus fees on there for $20,416. And I don't need answers right now.
Okay, I can get you those.
yes.
I know AWs are separate projects.
Right. It would be nice to kind
Okay,
of, I
details.
know you, I don't think you can code it, but that's why I'm asking. And then, and then, can you just explain for the public why we're reimbursing Stony Creek for the lighting which I know why it is, because they put in the LEDs and all of that.
Exactly. So-
But I wanted for the
Yep.
public.
Yep, so that's an agreement that we have with a couple associations where they upfronted the money for the electrical, and we end up paying the electrical, but it's like 1/3. If Anthony was here, he'd know the exact things, but it's 1/3 of the cost it used to be. So it was a good upfront cost, and now forever, we're seeing those savings. It was, everybody almost jumped on it, almost all the subs. So we did it at the city first. Remember, they did all the lights, everything we own. DDA did it, and then we cut the same deal. Anthony stayed on that with that company, and how they front the millions of dollars to do that conversion, and then they get paid back over a period of years. But we save like 2/3 of our electrical bills, which is significant. So it's been a good program. Thanks
No.
for asking.
Nope, not a problem. I just wanted the public who might not know what that was for.
Your Honor.
Madam Clerk?
So I can verify the exact amounts, Councilmember Peterson, but Civic Plus is our website vendor. They're also, this also could be for our agenda module, and then
okay.
also the Ready Rochester module, where we sent out just a week ago or two the emergency alerts. So
Okay.
there's a lot of different modules that we have that we're trying to figure out what we're doing with, and that's a big bulk of them.
Okay, and is that then a yearly fee?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you, Leanne, for that. And I know we reduced some modules that we didn't feel like we were getting our money's worth. So we've saved significant amount of money on that too. So these are the ones that we felt were necessary.
No, I think it's great. I was just curious if it
Yeah,
was
good
like
question.
one time or annual. Okay.
Very good, thank you. Next, receive a report from the various boards and commission. First is a report from the Rochester Hills Public Library. Mr. City Manager, is that just report to view?
It is.
Next, we have a report from the Downtown Development Authority. I will do that tonight. We talked about the mural and that being dedicated, and, you know, the DDA was part of that. The Historical Mission talked about the Memorial Day Heritage Festival, and that they had a lot of good things happening, and they think, but that by keeping the same date, the date we used to have, they think that will start to pick up and things. We had an election of the board officers, which stayed the same, so Ben Giovanelli is the chair and Tony LaPuma is the vice chair. We talked about the Bill LaPuma Community Spirit Award. We're trying to get an award together, and we're making progress on that. Nick gave an economic development update, and then Christy gave a report on her trip to Richmond, where they talked about, and Alec went on that trip as well. Talked about the artwork that's downtown, that, you know, they just, even in areas that aren't maybe as developed and as nice, they're having artwork all over downtown, which I think is a good model for us. And also the other big thing was they talked about shipping crates are the new way to have startup businesses and stuff. And so we're looking at that, and, you know, every potential problem and issue with supply chain and stuff, you can make it into an opportunity. So that's what went on there. Question for Councilmember Albrecht.
Mayor, I saw was the employee wage adjustment, and I know
yeah.
we had pushed that to them to approve. Did they approve their?
Yes, sorry, I
Okay.
should have. The Christie and the two employees were part of that and got pay increases, and the DDA board voted unanimously to approve that. And the three employees thanked us and the study for their increases. So thank you for asking.
That's good.
Next, we have a report from the Pink Creek Trailway Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Actually, I was unable to attend, and I think possibly Councilmember Peterson attended.
No, I did not.
What?
I did not
Okay.
get noticed soon enough, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Pardon?
I did not get noticed soon enough for my schedule.
Okay. So what would be appropriate notice? I think I sent that, goodness, 3 weeks? Is that not enough? I apologize.
I didn't get it 3 weeks ago in an email.
Okay, all right.
I did,
So,
I did notice that they're looking for a part-time administrative assistant, because you see that out on the trail. So they're now advertising out on the trail.
So I guess I can mention, since I did talk to the trail manager, so one of the agenda items was discussion and approval on the Labor Day Bridge Walk, which always culminates here in Rochester, and then the event expands up the trail. So in years previous, we have waived the special event application fee, the $75, because it's simply just trading money in two different buckets. We already make a contribution to them. So I guess I will make a motion now to waive the $75 special application fee for the Paintree Trailway Commission on the Labor Day Bridge Walk.
And we did that in the past?
We did it last year, yes.
Motion by Councilmember Sage. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Gould. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Very good. And next, we receive a report from the Historical Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few updates. One, the commission asked whether administration was able to find that one book of plaque applications from the 80s. No? Okay. Could it possibly be in the garage? We don't know. Okay. We had a report out on Founder's Day, and obviously, as we had reported previously, it was a huge success. And we have actually already identified next year's Founder's Day, which will be March 12th, and again, to be located in the barn at the Rochester Hills Museum at Van Heesen Farm. And the theme of the presentation will celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Stony Creek Village. So one of the questions that came up during that discussion was, is there opportunity for us to video the event? Our last event was well attended, and we thought it might be. Is that something we work out through CMTV? Or?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll send a request then to administration. Very good. There was also a very glowing report on Rochester, Greater Rochester Heritage Days. Obviously, we had not been able to hold that event over the past few years due to COVID, so it was well attended. The only feedback we got, unsolicited, was regarding the breakfast at the community house. So if we can pass that along to Alan there at the community house, we would love to reinstate that as a function as part of the festival itself. And the last item was regarding the number of sales of the Detroit United Railway book. I did get an accounting from Marcy. I really appreciate that. We have sold 218 to date out of the 500, and we're very close to a break-even point, and then it's pure profit. Currently, we have on display City Hall, the DDA studio, the museum, and then obviously any commissioner.
I think the library might have some.
That's one we don't know.
I think she
So-
said she had a couple there.
All right, I'm going to reach out to her and make sure that's an opportunity. Also, just a request, I know we've done it in the past, and they were asking if we could put it in the quarterly newsletter each time, because it doesn't have to be a huge prompt, but it does help build recognition, so we can get to our break-even point.
$39.95.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
There you go. Thank you. On to public comment. Brian, anything? Doesn't look like it.
Yep, no additional comment.
Thank you, Brian. Next on to general miscellaneous. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, and thank you, Councilman Albert, for penning the press release, because that's been a passion of the tree committee, and very excited. If you drive down Letica, makes a huge difference. Sherman's did a yeoman's job. That was tough digging. We had every utility out there possible, marking stuff. So that's there's paint everywhere because there's underground cables and you don't know what you're gonna hit. So they literally hand dug every single hole. They couldn't take a chance with the backhoe because there's fiber and there's sprinkler systems. They didn't hit one thing out of the 27 trees. We got all 27 in, 5 species, so that if a disease ever does come through, it wouldn't wipe out all the trees. So we have 5 different species, and then that's in the report. So they water bagged them, we tree proofed them, got a year's note. We have a year guarantee because we water bagged them and treated it. Fire department's filling up the water bags twice a week if they need them. Sherman's got us through the first 2 weeks. So pleased as punch. Money came out of the tree fund. That's what the dollars are there for. And we got the word out. And they asked today for pictures. So Jason went out and he's taking pictures. That's so we can get it in the press release.
I spoke to Mary Beth Allman, and she asked me, so I went out and took
you got
pictures
some
and
too?
sent them to her also.
Okay,
So
perfect. So it's phase one. I'm very excited. I know Chief Steves looks out of town right now, but it was his idea in the beginning. He always said, if you were ever going to plant trees, plant them on Letica. He must have told me that 10 years ago. And he's very excited, and thanks to the tree committee for that.
Very good. Any further miscellaneous?
No, I believe that's it.
Madam Clerk?
Absentee ballots began going out last week with a batch of 1,500, and we have several hundred, probably more to go since then, so we'll be working on that. Machines, we received the programming, and I'm still testing, so that should go well by the end of the week, and that's all I have right now.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one more for Councilman Sage, that Melissa Ford reached out to us, and we're going to have a pre-meeting about the bridge, the engineering that's going through for the bridge. Remember, we approved we approved the granting the dollars for the engineering, but not having to do the muscle survey yet. But we want to make sure we don't miss a beat on that grant. Great. So we're meeting with her, I think, next Thursday. So just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd just like to say I did get my absentee ballots today. And just to remind everybody that you can only vote for, it's a primary, so you either have to vote Republican or Democrat. You cannot
Correct.
vote for both.
Cross-voted ballots will
Right.
count as a ballot, but no votes will count.
So even if you want to, you can't. Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Gould?
Are you going to do Sister City?
they are going to put it on the next agenda.
Okay. Nothing in that case. Thank you.
Now we're dying to know, right?
If you would like, we could do it right now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we had a sister city committee, and it didn't make the agenda, so Doug is our representative, so if we could get that done, that'd be great.
Yeah, and we're trying to, Megan and Holly are trying to go through, figure out all the commissions that you folks sit on, and if we missed that one. So if there's any more that anybody goes to that they weren't aware of, I think Laura didn't have that one in the packet, so, but.
I wonder if
you would-
Christine was still, from Rochester Hills, sends out the agenda, and she probably was still sending it to Blaine or something like
Laura,
that,
yeah.
so it's
But
probably.
yeah, great if you could make the report now, Doug, that'd be great.
Sure. We did meet on June 14th. I think everybody was there. Councilmember Albrecht, Councilmember Harrison, myself, and 3 of our counterparts from Rochester Hills. We discussed a little bit about the Memorial Day parade, kind of closing the loop on that. We're trying to figure out productive ways to share events with one another, so things may be going on in Rochester Hills, how citizens of Rochester can easily find out about them and vice versa. Looking into some options there. There were a lot of questions from the Rochester Hills folks on art projects, so thankfully Council Member Harrison was there to provide lots of insight and information, and so we've been brainstorming and sharing some ideas with them. More to come on that later, hopefully. They are interested in art installations. Kind of figuring out where to put them, I think, is going to be the challenge there. And then probably the last thing, we are meeting again on August 16th, but the very last thing is we're trying to plan a joint council dinner meeting for the fall, probably in September, where we all, members of both councils, go out and break bread and talk about things. That was it. Did I miss anything, Mark?
Just the Sister City Committee would put together an agenda ahead of time, so it's not just so we can present some of the things we're talking about and create some camaraderie between the two cities.
Is Rochester Hills going to pick up the tab?
Sure.
Good.
I support that motion.
I support that as well. And we can pick the restaurant too, right?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
They have to come here.
That's right.
Culver's.
Or the Spoon, one of the two, right? Councilmember Sage.
Nothing this evening, sir.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. One, wanted to know, like, the route for the big trucks that are doing the construction on Helen, why they are all going down while they're all going down Alice, which seems to be like out of the way.
Yeah, so-
Okay, because you're gonna just go around in circles.
Yeah, so it's a challenge on certain streets. So the first week they went down 3rd Street. Last week they went down Alice. And we're trying to keep them off of Alice because it's such a short jog. So,
Or all day today.
yeah, there's going to be a few days that happens. But once they get going, we're trying to get them to the east so they don't go down there. So it just depends on what side of the road the cut's on, unfortunately, when they're digging the sewer. So it will not be Alice
No, I
as the
just don't,
primary.
I know, but conceptually, it doesn't make sense that they even come down there because they're all elevated hills with big double loaders and big semis.
Yeah, no, I understand
Yeah.
it. They'd rather not use Alice, but again, I think it's where the cut in the road is. Alec, can you confirm any other news on that? But I don't think so. Yeah, I just think they're trying to stay off Alice, period, because you're right, it's going the wrong way to go back.
Right, yeah, and they're going over where they're working.
We'll
And
work
that-
with them.
That's all right. And then the other one is all the people who are still parking on the street that have driveways that are making it really dangerous at some of the intersections to get through.
There.
And then one other thing regarding the Paint Creek Trailsways, yes, Councilmember Sage reached out on June 15th. I responded back on the 17th, and then he responded back on the 18th, and unfortunately, my schedule could not accommodate, and I know as an alternate, it's not a requirement to be there, so just for the public's interest.
So then for public record, I will not be able to attend the July meeting as well. So given your busy schedule, maybe we can present that to any other council member that might be able to attend.
Well, excuse me, that doesn't need to be, you don't know what my schedule is yet for July, so
I'm just trying to get ahead.
no, it's fine. Seriously, you can keep that all offline, too.
So why don't we?
I'm sorry.
Why don't we see if you two can work it out, and if you can't, then you can let us know.
That would be great, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have two quick things. First, just a reminder, if people are interested, Lucy Strand, who served on the OPC board for 30 years, her visitation and funeral is tomorrow at 10 a.m. at St. John's Lutheran Church. And then also Nick and I sent out the meeting information for the city council meeting work session next week. I think everybody has applied that they can attend. I think we'll be sending out more information for it, but we're going to be talking about the bond money that has to be used, and the council has to make some decisions on that. So that's what that meeting's about.
We'll get you a formal agenda out Friday morning, so we know exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, so if you
Friday
have-
afternoon.
Yeah.
Friday, yeah.
If you have questions up front, you can talk to Nick or Anthony or Marcy,
Yep.
or myself. We have some time constraints coming up, so we're going to have to make some decisions on what to do with that.
And appreciate everybody's willingness to do that, because it's going to be a fierce 2 hours. We're going to get a lot of stuff done. We've got, the mayor said, there's some time constraint things with contracts for the sidewalks, for the extra sewer work. So we know more about Main Street, so we're going to have a tight agenda, and we'll get you that in advance so you can get any questions answered that you could. So I appreciate you accommodating us for that.
Is that still July 7th?
Yes.
Yeah, July 7th. And as I say, there's some time constraints with that money, so we need to make some decisions. So as opposed to going to the various subcommittees that, in the summer, we have trouble getting some meeting times and stuff. We decided to just go right to the city council and have everybody involved and see the same presentations and have the same information.
Mayor, I know I mentioned this to
Councilmember
you. I know I've been doing the doodle every time, and I never hear anything back to see if we, there was one for facilities and one for infrastructure. So I did the doodle right away, and then I don't hear anything. So is there a better way of?
Yeah, so if I may, Mayor, so that's exactly what happened. We got just one or two. And then since we didn't get any consensus, that's when I kind of went to the mayor and said, it's been said here before, 3 people or 2 people might know about, this is heavy, detailed procedure stuff. So we said, we'll just, not to usurp the power of those committees, but this is something you're all going to have to see again. So we should have followed up and said, we weren't sure we could get that meeting until Friday, so now that we have it, so thanks for doodling.
Well, just let us know
Yeah.
that, we didn't have
Yeah.
quorum, we're
Yeah.
not going to have the meeting, just so
Gotcha.
I keep those dates on my calendar till I hear back from you.
Close the loop, gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. And then we are now going to have a request for a closed session for city council to discuss pending litigation without the contemplation of returning.
So moved.
Support.
So motion by Councilmember Peterson, support by Councilmember Albrecht. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Thank you. Take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get started.
It's okay, I got it.
At least I'm going to take a 5-minute break. How's that?